My own personal journey on electrification began with a delivery truck in 2007. I can't believe it's nearly 20 years ago. Working with FedEx, working with UPS, but we're going to hear from DHL Express because our moderator is from the MENA region for DHL Express, Dilip Gursahani, who's the Director of Engineering. So this is a crucial area, having urban operating, defined mileage, back-to-base electric vehicles are a far better fit and match, in my opinion, for the electric vehicle revolution to happen quickly, to be frank, than cars. So let's put that to the test by listening, and if we can give a big round of applause to Dilip as he takes to the stage. Dilip, welcome. Mind the narrow step there. Good to see you. Yeah. The stage is yours.
So, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. We're very pleased to have a very interesting discussion today. It's all about EVs, as we know, as the central theme. But then when we put in the perspective of smart logistics and last mile delivery, it's a different sort of requirement and context. So I would like to invite Mr. Farid Fawaz Dallal, from founder and CEO of Motoboy. Mr. Sami Amin, right? GM Careem Bike, and Mr. Uday Narang, founder and CEO of Omega Psychomobility. So, I think what is going to be very interesting in terms of today's discussion is that we have a panel which is wide-ranging in terms of the actual user, the use case, and the provider as well. So that's what is going to be interesting, because then we get to hear all sides of the case, right? So what I would like to start with is basically, I mean, if you can give us an understanding of where do we stand right now in terms of EVs, smart logistics, and last mile.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for EVs for this invitation. Thank you for everyone, for the team that are with us here. So I'm Farid, CEO of Motoboy. We are a sustainable logistic company. We have approximately 100 to 180 electric fleet already active in Dubai. We are expanding up to September with additional almost 400 additional electric bikes. We have many clients. Special one that we have is Careem, that we are doing sustainable deliveries, our big partner that we are with them. We have a long journey ahead with sustainable electric bikes and cycles. Plus, we are extending to Abu Dhabi. We are starting in Abu Dhabi within approximately, let's say, 30 days. We are going to start our fleets. So in July, we're putting our 100 sustainable bikes to hit the roads of Abu Dhabi also. So.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for having us. So I'm Sami. I work for Careem. Careem is a consumer tech company with a large customer base, or consumer base of over 50 million across the region. Our core services include things like food delivery, groceries, and of course micromobility. So my focus is really on the two-wheeler side of things, and we do many orders every single day, and trying to figure out how to be more efficient, more sustainable, more effective when it comes to last mile logistics is critical for our business. It's core to our business. So we have been looking at this for a very long time. And of course, when it comes to EV adoption, it's a big focus of ours. So I'm going to be talking about this a bit more today, but that's from my side.
Hi, my name's Uday Narang. Great to be here in this great city. Abu Dhabi's leading on green energy and sustainability. My name's Uday Narang. I'm the founder of Omega Psychomobility. I've been working on front lines in green energy and sustainability now for close to a decade. Been putting two-wheelers, three-wheelers, four-wheelers in India, been testing them, putting them across Asia, in countries where, we need to even push harder on putting green energy sustainability, because the most polluted cities in the world are there. We're also setting up operations here in the UAE. Been absolutely excited to see, what is changing specifically in the UAE, to see 25% EVs in this country, especially where, there's enough oil. That's very, very comforting. And to see where now in UAE, where the two-wheelers are now coming into the mobility side, I think we want to see more electric trucks. And I think, the commercial sector is extremely, ready for disruption. I've been involved in this space. I've seen a lot of change, and I'm happy to share, I also unofficially run one of the largest e-logistic companies in India. And I think a lot of learnings from a lot of places, but seriously, what's going on here in the UAE is exciting, and I think the rest of the Gulf can learn from this, and I think obviously more can be done from here and other parts of the world. And for me, I say I'm on the mission impossible. This mission impossible of working and making a change has what made me, our good friend just Sami asked me I was a hedge fund manager for 30 years in US and Europe, to come back and get into this. We've got to make a change. This is the most important thing, which matters to our future generations. And I think, whatever I can do, I've been working in policy, in putting vehicles on the ground, new technology, new vehicles, faster, quicker. And I think, this is not just a sprint, this is a marathon. And we all got to be running this marathon together. It's like the Kenyans. We all run, the first 80 kilometers or 90 kilometers together, and the last can win. But I think in this game, we all got to work together. Thank you very much.
Yes, so thanks for the introduction and sort of giving a flavor of where each one of you sort of stands as of now in terms of EVs and last mile logistics. Talking about EVs, we always know that, and you experience that there are enough challenges and we have not been able to move as fast as we would all want to.
Yeah.
So specifically talking about challenges, starting with you, Farid, what are the specific challenges that you faced and how do you counter it? I mean, if you can give yours and then Sami and Uday as well. Yeah.
The biggest challenge in the initial, when we started the operations, is to convince some clients in order to change to sustainable, to electric bike. Since it's a new technology, everyone is afraid to have some issues in their business where they can affect maybe their income or the delivery speed. So the challenge we face with many clients was in order to meet them and discuss with them what's the best option in order to see. Because nowadays the logistics is totally different. The logistics, we have to think not only about the speed and the cost. There is something very important that everyone is forgetting. It is the environmental. What I mean is, it is a responsibility of everyone here to think about the environmental because it's a crucial situations and issues to be solved. So we can do it. I'm pretty sure we have 150 bikes. Why we cannot expand it to put more bikes? It's just instead of changing the way of thinking, instead of an open zone, we can have a limited zones. So there is many ways to be saving. And also we can think about it, about the safety of the riders. So in the initial, the challenge that you asked me was to convince the clients to tell them, okay, you will be having the same cost. Because for them, in some of initial stage, some people think that the sustainable should be cheaper. And the challenge that we faced with the riders was that, okay, I will have a petrol money in order to put the fuel. So what we have done is, we as the company, we introduced to the riders that there is no fuel cost. So it was until the rider comes to the situation, understand that it's real and he can do it. And nowadays, there are riders doing above 35 to 25 to 28, depending of the zones, deliveries. And they are saving the money of the fuel and the client satisfied. And this was a big challenge to us, to show them that can be done with a better way, with a greener way,
So Careem is a marketplace. We have contractors on our platform that do the deliveries, independent contractors. And of course, we serve our customers. What's the objective of our customers? To receive the order as cheaply and as fast as possible. So whatever technology is available needs to best serve this purpose. our contractors at this point don't prioritize sustainability. They prioritize cost and functionality. So what's very important for the adoption of EVs is for, first of all, the technology or the hardware to be fit for purpose. It needs to be economical, not only from an operating cost, but also from an acquisition or CapEx cost. And of course, there's the element of regulation. You need to be able to get them licensed, you need to be able to import them, the vehicles. And lastly, there's a cultural requirement to make sure that this technology gets adopted. I think His Excellency said earlier that there's something called range anxiety. For logistics, range anxiety is even more problematic because we don't have the type of EV charging infrastructure that you have for personal vehicles or maybe delivery vehicles. I'm talking specifically about the two-wheeler space. So how do we bridge that gap? I think this comes down to operators like Careem, it comes down to suppliers like Farid or Motoboy, and of course, it comes down to market participants to really understand what the requirement is. Now, the good news is that producers are really listening, they're moving, they're shifting, they understand that this is a different market than, say, Asia or Europe. In Europe, you don't drive big distances. You don't have the temperature constraints that you have here. You don't drive at the high speeds that you drive in the UAE. So the GCC has specific set of requirements that aren't exactly the same across the world. So suppliers are starting to move and understand that this is the case. And of course, there's a cultural shift. People really want to adopt EV technology. So these are the challenges: technology, regulation, culture, and of course, the unit economics.
It's great to hear this from you, Sami. I think, like I said, it's been a decade in this game. And I think, what's most important is, I think I can get you the technology. I can get you all of the requirements. I think what to get scale, costing. I think costing is extremely important because specifically, and I'm going to talk about, the Gulf region. I think all of the players are going to say, I need products, whether it's 2, 4, 3-wheelers are not here, but in Africa they are. But what I was going to say, so what we are working on is consistently working on making those cost efficiencies. I think the technology is coming. I think the technology is there. Whether it's battery technology, powertrains, motors. And I think, there's a conception that EVs or even hydrogen or alternate fuel are more expensive than ICE. I mean, diesel or petrol, right? I think we are changing that at OSM and all across the globe now. I think you're coming out. One thing that's changed, battery pricing has changed considerably, because if you see in an EV, basically 30% of the cost is battery. If you use swap, it's even better. I mean, our good friend here showed me a picture outside of, he's building swap stations for two-wheelers in this country, but that can happen in the four-wheelers also. If you can do battery as a service, so that can reduce cost. There are multiple ways to do this. I think there is consistently technology being built. And I think, pricing will come when there is scale, right? If there's scale, look at what has happened in China. In China, they've been able to achieve the scale, or if they've been able to do this in the Nordic country, but the Nordic countries are smaller. But to do it in bigger, you'll be able to get scale. And for scale, you need to make sure we have the pricing, we have the charging infra, we have the technology. Because I'll tell you, don't forget, and this is the experience that I found, charging infra is just as important as putting technology and products out there, because if you don't have the charging infra, you're going to be having that issue. And that range anxiety but that's also getting solved with longer batteries, more efficient batteries, safer batteries, and safer vehicles. I think this is a marathon, and I keep saying this, you're going to see costing go down. I think you're going to be able to see products that are more efficient, in terms of, and the logistics space, particularly the commercial space, we should have all EVs. I think what you're talking about is the total cost ownership. And the total cost ownership model, into me now, specifically in the 2 and 3 and the LCV, the 1 ton and up to 3.5 ton trucks is making sense. I think the scale needs to come. We're seeing a huge amount of change happening all across the globe. And I think that, where we are working on is to include technology, engineering, and product to be able to go and make a change. I'll be honest, the 2 and the 3 wheelers should all be EVs anyway, because the costing works. As long as you've got the charging infra and you've got the technology associated with that. For me, that's already there. And I think, the question is, how do we get the other parties servicing, service, because when you give these products, please make sure that the customer is getting service. On non-EVs, the service is available. What I have found with my experience is making sure enough spare parts, making enough TAT, right, is there, because people like yourself need to make sure that the downtime is limited, because that's where you're going to be earning your riders. And I think we are continuously, from a supply side, working on giving all of this to all the customers. And I do see, I'm a big Martin Luther King fan. I think, my dream is that, we get more and more, green products out here and in this world. And I think we can only do this if we can make it cheaper. And I think that's really, at the end of it, any logistic, whether it's a DHL or whether it's Careem, the money is going to talk, right? I think, obviously, you're going to be able to care about the environment, but I think at the end of the day, it's going to matter. I'm sorry I'm being very direct right now, but when we go back at home, I think the companies and the leadership will talk about costing. I've seen that in my experience over the last decade.
Thanks, Uday, for firstly, I think very important sort of understanding on how important is the unit cost aspect, because that is something which is a continual challenge for service providers, whether it's express logistics like us or, same-day delivery or the last mile aspect of the logistics. So interesting to know the challenges across the user and how it has been addressed from the supply side. Now, specifically talking about technologies, where do you see smart technologies affecting and improving EVs in terms of their performance or their communication and integration with smart logistics as well? How do you see that? And from starting with maybe, starting with Uday, I mean, what is being offered or what is being worked upon, and then we can look at what the client wants here.
Look, you're absolutely right. Technology is going to play a major role. When we started this game a decade ago, range was a problem. Range is not an issue anymore. Safety was an issue. Cells, a lot of people use cells. You can get, let's be honest, 95% of cells are coming from China. Right, they control, the production. It's become a commodity. Cell production and battery has become an absolute commodity. I think you're getting better quality cells. You're getting better products. We're using telemetrics. You're using real time. We're monitoring. I'll say in my war room in Delhi, we're monitoring about 20 to 30,000 vehicles real time. When do they need to go for maintenance? If there are a battery issue, because sweating the asset, and I'm going to keep coming back to this, whether it's on the cargo or the passenger, commercial passenger, right? I'm not talking about personal, right? I'm focusing very, very much on the commercial sector, also in mobility of people. I think you're seeing, new battery tech, new and more efficient powertrains and motors. You're seeing the telemetrics and the data. Data is, gold. I think, looking at customers' patterns, looking at the customer preference, giving better service. I think that is all being worked on. There are software companies, there are battery companies. There's a whole village being built on this, and I think the common goal is to put scale, volume, to be able to to be able to put this world, and I keep coming back to it, Mother Earth is the need of the hour, that if we don't consider this, I'm not gonna comment on, drilling, drill baby drill or whatever, all of that's going on, but I think this is the need of the hour. And I think that, if you can see a country forward thinking like the UAE moving ahead, I think we can all learn from this. And coming back to you, I think we are working on complete telemetrics with the likes of, logistic players to be able to give them what they need to be able to sweat the assets better. But I'll keep telling you, technology is coming out where whether it's swap, 15-minute fast charging, 12-minute fast charging, whether it is coming up with more efficient, load carrying capacity. I come from, India. If there's a passenger vehicle that requires 3, they'll take 16 on it, right? So how do you work on making sure that battery range and that powertrain and that EV works? Because overloading is going to be everywhere. If you have a 700 kg load, they carry 1.5 ton. I think so. You have to make those vehicles which are robust, which can carry the extra load, can be able to give you the extra, because that logistic player needs the earnings. Otherwise, they're going to go back to this is a challenge, right? And I think you're seeing this happen consistently. I keep saying to everybody, we all got to work together to make this happen. This is not just an individual race. This is a combined effort, and I think together, if we work, and I don't think this is a country specific. Whatever technology can come from wherever to get to the goal, I think should be accepted. I think, whether it's made in China or made in US or made in India or made in UAE, I think we've got to be able to combine forces together to fight this sort of, and to get successful on this Mission Impossible. Again, we've seen more and more green plates come up, across, countries where I've seen. And I think technology is a big helper. We are seeing so much work globally going on. And I think you'll see over the next 10 years a very big change. And I'm hoping DHL and everybody else also continually works towards not just, to have a target, but actually to make it happen. And I think that's seriously where companies like ours are working towards it.
Yeah.
So I can speak on the topic of two-wheeler logistics. We've been looking at this topic for roughly 4 years now. We've tested many different vehicle types. Maybe just to tell you about the requirements specifically for the region. A driver or captain, as we call them, they travel more than 250 kilometers every single day. On a motorbike, that's a really, really big range that they cover. Much higher average than many other countries in the world. They also travel at a very high speed, speeds of over 100 kilometers. So you've got the requirement of very high range, very high speed, has to be zero downtime to ensure that the vehicle can continue to be economical. And of course, it needs to be affordable. So you have to answer fundamental questions before you go into the bike. And the first fundamental question is, how do you deal with the charging issue? You can either get a motorbike with a very big battery pack and then maybe charge it at night or on fast chargers, or you can opt for something like replaceable batteries. Now, of course, if you go with a replaceable battery technology, then you need the infrastructure to be able to allow a captain or driver to swap the batteries. On the flip side, if you go with fixed batteries, then you have to also provide infrastructure for it, but very different infrastructure. So that was the first question that we wanted to answer. I think we've come to terms that replaceable batteries for the two-wheeler segment is probably the better solution. Then comes like specific components of the motorbike. What form factor do you use? When you look at the Asian market, they really like the scooter form factor. Even in Europe, they like the scooter form factor. But when you look at this region, maybe Southeast Asia, they prefer the traditional motorbike form factor. So form factor, charging technology, and then of course things like battery chemistry, motor specifications. Battery chemistry is an interesting topic because it's gone under several evolutions in the last few years. And what we've seen become much more prominent is LiFo. LiFo has much higher charge. You can charge it at a much higher frequency than standard lithium-ion batteries. But more importantly, and this is now the last component that we're really concerned about, is safety. LiFo is significantly safer when there's a collision. On a two-wheeler, that's a big topic. Collisions do happen, and they're much more exposed than, say, a car. So we're seeing a change and a shift in the technology that you use for the battery chemistry. So I think there's many questions that one needs to answer to really scale, as my colleague earlier said, this technology. And of course, for us as Careem, it needs to make sense at scale. Otherwise, there's many pilots that we ran and they're good, but really the impact comes once you scaled it. So we're very, very heavily involved in this. We work with many suppliers. We really dig into the technology. We go to many OEMs, whether in China, whether in India, or even in Europe. So I think there's a good shift happening, but we really need to understand this market to be able to solve the problems of this market. You cannot just bring in a motorbike from Europe and expect it to work effectively in the GCC. It just won't. So I think these are some of the challenges that we are really concerned about.
Your views on
From
smart
our
technology
side,
and how does it fit in your offering?
okay, from our side, we are lucky that we are partnered with Wise Power. We, as a Motoboy, we search for the best company in technology related to the swapping stations plus the battery. So 1 year back, we have a different type of batteries where we're having a range. This year, we are doing like totally different with the technology of the bike. We're after the bike's range here. We have tech about the weather, where it is about the hot weather that we're facing and everything. So the technology that we go back with them, they design a better battery, they design a better infrastructure for the bikes. So luckily, we as a delivery service company, we are concentrating in our clients to make sure to attend their demand, their requirements, plus the customer to make sure that it will arrange in a safe way to them and in a good time. Additional to that, just to come back about the safety of the rides, that's the most important for us. So we have done approximately within when we started the company, almost 3 years, 1.1 million deliveries, sustainable deliveries, what we are talking about. So this is a very important achievement for us, which we can consider that we limited the zones. So when you limited the zones by 5 kilometers, more deliveries the riders can do it, and it will be more safety for him. So this is the one thing. With that, we have done, let's consider that each delivery has 100 to 120 grams of CO2. So we are considering that we saved approximately 500 to 600 tons of CO2. So what the technology, I think, should be done not only from the industry of the bikes, also from the clients or let's consider Careem, Talabat, or other big other big players, is also to show in their applications where when you are doing a sustainable delivery, this is also giving a points or some money back, something about sustainable, and how much you saved your tree on environmental. This is how we can show also to the client, incentivize them. This is a very important technology that should happen here in order to encourage everyone to do it.
Yeah, thanks, Farid. And you pointed out a very important thing. The sole purpose of electric vehicle is to really work on clean operations and have a clean environment, right? So it brings to our sort of last and the most important aspect of the discussion is how does your organization see measurement and absolute impact on environment? I mean, how is it being measured and how specific goals are being achieved by doing this? Maybe we can start with you, Sami, and then.
So, of course, we do care about the environment, and we have services like Careem Bike, which is a micromobility service, and it provides first-class mobility to public transportation hubs. We have more than 550,000 customers on Careem Bike in the UAE alone, and they did over 10 million trips. So we are concerned about the environment. Now, when it comes to how do we have, or how do we measure our impact when we electrify our whole fleet? I think the first step is understanding how you can transform the whole fleet. It is an objective, and I think the question is not anymore, are we going to transform our fleet into electric? The question is only when. It is happening. It's just how are you going to do it, and when is it going to happen? And of course, I think when it comes to CO2 displacement, we have metrics that we try to measure, because it's not only EV delivery that we have, we also have our taxi and ride-hailing service with more than 4 million drivers on the platform. So, of course, a lot more have gone and moved to electric vehicles for the transportation of people. I think we can do a lot more in how we measure it. And I think when it comes to the incentive to actually really measure it, the regulator can play a big role. I think we've seen that in other places where there is an incentive to actually achieve certain targets. And I think we're also slowly moving towards these incentives in this region. I think the more it becomes clear what the targets are, the more likely it'll be that we're going to be very focused on really driving impact that's measurable.
Thanks. Yeah, I think it's quite encouraging because even I would say within DHL, like we have targets to almost electrify more than 60% of our fleet by 2030. So that's, when we look at globally, that's a big challenging number. And we have 2030 targets and then 2050 net zero targets as well. And it's encouraging to see that this is happening across organizations. And so it just builds a better ecosystem. And we end up with a better product as well in the market. Yeah. Would you agree on that, Uday? I mean,
I think that, yeah. For me, absolutely. I only have one mission, one thought process. How do I work towards converting every one of you? And I think the only way I'm going to be able to help, and it's not for me, just India or the UAE, this whole planet, I'm just working with governments, with teams, but the only way, as they say, boots on the ground, more vehicles, more infrastructure, more and more conviction to everybody that this is the path and can only happen with scale. And I think if anybody's shown us, the Chinese have shown us, if you go to China and you see what they have done with EVs, what they have done with the infrastructure, I'll tell you, man, they're miles and miles ahead of everybody. But I think learning never stops. I think we can learn from it. We can all build, you can think global and act local. I think we've got to be able to, some of us will have to put the hand in the pocket and have to do this. I'm just going to hope that we all, over the next decade, continually work on it. This is something that's, no matter what you say, is happening. I've spent enough time, read enough studies, and I think we are now moving towards an era where costing is going to be. I think both of you guys, the technology is there. I don't think, and technology is moving so fast that's the reason it's moving so fast is because you're finding alternate battery technologies or something else to reduce cost. All right, and I think no doubt about it that every one of you should look at it. I think it's not just for the conferences, they're actually looking in your heart and saying, we're going to make a difference. And I think, for me at least, Dilip, whatever time I got on this planet, I'm going to keep working on this. I left my career as a hedge fund manager on Wall Street to do this. And I think maybe I got another 50 years left in me, so I'll just do this. And I think I expect all of you, whichever nation you belong to, please work on this. This is very important. Thank you very much.
So I think I would say, just to sort of summarize the discussion very briefly, what I can understand is a common ground in terms of understanding of the impact of environment, impact on environment and doing something about it. And I can see while we all seated into our positions in the organization, but there is something inside us which is personally sort of holds responsibility to do what we can do in our capacities to help the environment. So that's one of the driving factor. And the other is we can see technology improving, we can see things happening on the infrastructure front, and also the sharp focus on improving the unit cost with deploying EVs as well, right? So I think it's sort of very reassuring to see that we all sort of on the same page moving forward, yeah, in a positive direction.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks, esteemed panelists. I'd like to thank you all, yeah.
Very much.
Thank you very much, the panel. We can give them our appreciation. Thank you. And we'll just see if there are a couple of questions. Any questions in the audience at this time? Okay. Yeah, well, I'm not going to make a question, have a comment. Echoing very much your points about where we are, you've collectively said it, where we are with planetary change. It is Earth Day today, April the 22nd. It's the 55th occasion of that focus on all the things that are going on. Yet, we do still have to deal with the reality of this is a commercial world. Money does make the world go round, not literally, of course, but in regard to economies, nation states, progress, we deal with the world that we've constructed over 100 years, well, certainly combustion engine, 130 years, and we do take it in this managed transition. And I think commercial vehicle fleets, a lot of what you've been talking about there, definitely lead the way, because urban operating, defined mileage, back to base, is actually a better and easier fit for electric vehicles than the massive challenge of electric cars, in truth. And I think you've explained some of that very well. So please, one more time, if we can give our appreciation. Oh, we do have a question, sorry.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would really like to know more about the zoning efforts that you are offering. Besides my role as the CEO of ESG MENA, I'm a road safety activist and writer in the region. So it's a two-way benefit, basically. In terms of zoning within your activities, what are you doing in this regard? And in which emirate as well?
Okay. we started to set up our EVs work. We set up some zones in Dubai, example, like we limited like some zones A, B, and C, and D. So let's consider we started with many clients in Palm. So what we have done, we subscribed to some mosques and we have our swapping stations registered there. And we have done Palm, Sufouh, and we have considered that area in Barsha Heights. Let's consider this is one zone. Another zone is going to be GLT. So we are separating by zones where it's much easier for the rider to do the deliveries and more safety. Parallel to that, we agree with our client, like for example with Careem, where they have to put a limitation for the zones up to 10 kilometers, let's consider. So any orders that's ordered out of the zone, it will come to another sector, that's, let's say, sector B. So this is one thing. And second, in some zones that we don't have the swapping station yet, so we are delivering also by our sustainable bikes some batteries to other riders where they cannot stop at any moment. So with this, we increased our profitability plus our deliveries where we are working 24 hours. There is no stoppage at all. Even there is no infrastructure for a time in one zone, but we still can deliver to that area. Why? Because we are having some sustainable deliveries. If it's not a sustainable swapping station, we are having sustainable deliveries to them.
Great. Thank you, Sami. Appreciate that. And thank you very much, everybody, for really being here. You know, coming to any of these events is a commitment. We appreciate that. So thank you very much. Once again, thank you very much. Wonderful panel. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.